Hey everyone, Aaron here from MTGChallengers, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'll be showing off my white Weenie deck for Born of the Gods Standard. I really like playing white-based aggressive decks, even though they're usually not the best decks. When every season of Standard rolls around, I'll usually give it a try and see how playable it is, and I think this deck is definitely very good. So starting off with the creatures, which are the majority in this deck, I have 4 Soldier of the Pantheon, a really solid 1-drop for white Weenie, 2-1 for 1 with some interesting upsides. The protection for multicolored isn't quite as relevant as I thought it was going to be when it was first printed. Monocolored decks ended up just dominating Standard, as they likely will continue to do so. But again, it's a 2-1 for 1, and the upside is fairly good against decks like Rakdos Aggro that are playing a lot of multicolored creatures like Rakdos Cackler, Spike Jester, and Rakdos Shred Freak. Then I have my other 1-drop creature, Dryad Militant, 4 copies of it as well. It shouldn't require a lot of explanation. It's just another 2-1 for 1 that I wanted to put in here for consistency to ensure that I'll always have that turn 1 play. Moving on to the 2-drops, I have 4 copies of Imposing Sovereign. The card is just nuts against other creature-based decks, especially those like, again, Rakdos Aggro that are relying on little haste creatures to swing in the turn they come into play. It destroys flash shenanigans, and it's just a generally good card to disrupt any decks that have creatures in them. Then I have 4 copies of Spirit of the Labyrinth, one of the new cards from Born of the Gods. Granted, it's a lot better in older formats where it just destroys stuff like Brainstorm and Ponder, but it's still solid in Standard as it is right now. It's good against Sphinx's Revelation and even like Mono Black with their Underworld connections. But the main reason I'm running it is it's 3 power for 2 mana, which is really good for just bashing in or drawing blockers off of my Precinct Captains or Imposing Sovereigns. Then I have the traditional playset of Precinct Captain. A solid card all around, especially with the first strike against other aggressive decks. The mana cost is also useful, as the deck does play off of Devotion a little bit. The tokens it produces also come in handy with things like Desecration Demon, Jump Blockers, or just bashing in for more damage. Now we're up to the 3-drops. I have 4 Boros Reckoner. It's just an outstanding card all around. The mana cost helps out tremendously with Devotion, and it just destroys other aggro decks with a 3 power, first strike ability, and the ability to redirect damage dealt to it. It's also multicolored, meaning that it dodges ultimate price, which is fairly important since the card has been seeing more play lately due to the influx of monocolored decks. Then we have the Kitty Cat King himself, best card in Born of the Gods, not close, Brimaz, King of Oreskos. As soon as I saw this guy in the spoiler, I knew immediately that I wanted to revisit White Weenie and play 4 of him. And it's worth it. He's close to the power level of like Geist of Saint Traft. So good that you run 4 of him even though he's legendary. You just always want to have him on turn 3, and he will kill your opponent very quickly if they can't get rid of him. He's also just approaching unfair how he curves out with Spear of Heliod, so you can go turn 3 Brimaz, turn 4 Spear, and bash in for absurd levels of damage. The tokens he produces are also good at shutting down things like Desecration Demon. He's just insane in every way you can imagine. Then I have 3 copies of Heliod, God of the Sun. It's really good in this deck, especially since I'm only running 4 non-permanents. If I curve out, which is really easy in this deck, he will be a creature the turn he comes into play. Giving all creatures Vigilance is really awesome as well, and he can help you come back after a board wipe with his token ability. So that's it for the creatures. Moving on to other spells, I have 3 copies of Spear of Heliod. Just really good in white creature decks like this one, and like I mentioned earlier, it's just absurd how good it is with Brimaz. The mana ability on it is also pretty nice since I don't have a lot of main deck removal. Then I have the final spell, 4 copies of Brave the Elements. I usually run 3, but I pushed it up to 4 just because of how good the card is. It's cheap, efficient, and it can be used both offensively and defensively. I can give my creatures protection when I'm swinging in to make them all unblockable, use it after blocks just to kill all their creatures and leave mine unscathed. I can also use it to save a particularly important creature from spot removal. Then I have the mana base, which is 22 lands consisting of 17 plains, 1 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and 4 Mutavault. Mutavault is obvious in aggro decks like this one, especially decks that can support it as well as this can. Just another creature that can swing in for damage, which is the #1 thing an aggressive deck wants to do. The 1 Nykthos is kind of just thrown in here, similar to Mono Blue. Since I do have a decent bit of greedy mana costs in the deck, I thought I'd throw in one to take advantage of that. And the 17 planes should be self-explanatory. So that's it for the main deck. Let's take a look at the sideboard. sideboard is really simple, it's just 5 3-ofs, and each card can be given a popular deck type that it works against. So first I have Fiendslayer Paladin, which is really good against mono black since it has protection from their spells. Banisher Preist is really good against mono blue to get rid of Thassa, as well as to exile their Masters of Waves and kill all their tokens. It's also there against the mirror matchup to get rid of their Brimazes. 3 Wear and Tear is really good for enchantment destruction, which is absolutely necessary in this season of Standard with enchantment creatures, underworld connections, and bestow creatures. Then I have Renounce the Guilds, which I think could see a lot more sideboard play in this season of Standard, since it gets rid of the multicolored gods, a few of which could see play. It's also one of the only things that can get rid of a monstrous Fleece main lion, but the main reason I'm running it is it's basically the only way this deck can deal with Blood Baron of Vizkopa, which is really important. And since this is a monocolored deck, I rarely will have to sacrifice anything to it, so it will be one-sided most of the time. And finally, I have 3 Rootborn Defenses, obviously against blue-white and Esper decks, running things like Supreme Verdict, as well as the new card Fated Retribution, which I think is going to be really highly played. The chances of being able to populate are also fairly decent since I have the captains as well as Brimaz. So that's it for this deck tech. Thank you all very much for watching. To see these decks in action, check out our gameplays, and also be sure to keep up with the other deck techs that we upload. Thanks for visiting, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.